Well, here we are in the last week of our class. It's been, for me, and it seems like each of us in our own way, pretty amazing class in terms of where we've come to. We've been asked to open up all the doors to the world and all the doors within ourselves. So we have a clear sense of our consciousness on the planet, lined up in ourselves, so that we have this capacity to sense our relationship to everything, our own depth, and our connectedness to Earth, that we are here as a player, as a consciousness that has the capacity to discover and position itself in a world in a new way. I love the perspective of Einstein when he was very clear that, and it's amazing, you have a wise person, Einstein. He said, you can never solve a problem on the level of the problem, or from the mindset of the problem. You have to go to a different mindset, or go to a level above it. So it seems like people are so persistent in going to the level of the problem and trying to solve the problem or fix the problem. Whereas if you allow yourself to actually restructure your consciousness, restructure how your mind works, and that's something we don't do all at once. In this journey, we begin to look at habits of mind. We look at simple dialogue as a way to help each other have insight, explore things, become researchers into our own existence, and look at how we learn. Much of how we learn is freeing up our consciousness to be sensitive to what we already know, and to be able to see what's really there. Early on in my educational career, it became apparent to me that many times the obstacle of learning something had to do with something inside of the person, like when they ran into a difficulty with a book or a way of thinking. It reflected back, so it wasn't the material itself, it was a person changing something inside of them where they were caught in themselves. And when they could free that up, their consciousness could move again and they could respond and engage the material. So it's that constant action of reflexivity in that process, and we keep coming back to that and meeting it. It keeps coming up again. An assignment, something we read, seems to stump us. And if we try to solve that, we get more stuck. If we go inside and say, "However, I'm not in the framework to really see what's going on here." I was just glancing over the final papers that came in on scenario, and a common theme was that to really consider the possibility that you can align in your loving, anchor in that, live from a presence of that, and allow that to be the core, the strength, the anchor of what you do with your emotions, mind, and your imagination, to be aware of what is actually going on in the world, the possibilities for yourself. So in the building of that scenario, it just was apparent to me that each person in their own way was strengthening that position and realizing that that is possible to approach from that basis, and actually then be realistic, to be able to engage the details of life, to meet life as it is, and work from that basis of the loving. When I first began to work with Insight University, and we looked at the mission of the school, and it was fascinating to me, but what is this really about? This school being here to assist us to, well, I'll read it. Insight University is here to assist us in transforming ourselves into loving, so that the greater transformation of the planet to loving will take place. And I know we've been over this many times, but there's a clear statement here that there's already something in place, and that when we transform ourselves into loving, it makes possible this plan of loving to take place on the planet. Years ago, I was in consternation about the way the world was, and how would this all come about, and getting a little pessimistic and concerned, not seriously, but enough to have consternation about it. So just, I've been studying this stuff and living this vision of a new age, and said, well, it doesn't seem like much evident that this great plan that we've been hearing about in the prophecies and studying, and the teachers have been telling us. And so that night I had a experience in which I was shown that in the higher order of things, there was a plan. There was a sentient, conscious, working plan for a certain resolution of the human condition and spirituality on the planet. And they also showed me that it was kept out of sight. In other words, it was done at a level where the negativity couldn't see it. And so it was going along, doing its work in the background. The negativity couldn't see it, so it couldn't stop it. It couldn't disrupt it. It couldn't polarize against it. It couldn't pass a law. It couldn't, buy somebody off. It couldn't bully, because it couldn't see it. So it would go along doing its thing. And at the right time, the plan would just appear full-blown. It would just show up. And so I was reminded of this again when I was, with the mission. It's like, so loving can take place. See, the transformation of the planet into loving can take place. It's like it's already set. And so we simply have to keep working until we reorganize ourselves into that alignment. So we can see then that from each of our perspectives that we've done the work to where we haven't shut off any part of life, because when you shut off a piece of life, you do something to yourself that limits you, that takes you out of the wholeness to some extent. You may have great meditations, but you won't be aware. You, in terms of being, taking responsibility for your leadership on the planet, there's blind spots, there's spaces you're not allowing a certain part of the awareness. So this has been the way down through the ages of controlling people. First you get them away from themselves with an identity, who they think they are that's away from their alignment. And of course when you do that, people live in fear because they're just basing things on a reflection of what can happen and what they can lose, or they can die, and the basic self has no support, and it gets pretty scary. So you can control the scene, and so those things go unconscious and we don't realize. So when somebody says something a certain way, we get triggered, either an old trauma or a perspective. So we revert to this protecting the status quo that we've learned out of our, collection and integration of images and so forth about who we are. And so that's the way life progresses. Well, so when we're willing to look at anything and engage everything, and use the dark centers in the light, see, so everything becomes a support of us being a certain way inside of ourselves. And I could see in each person's weaving of their personal scenario that one thing they were affirming is that I have this core of loving, and I can relate to life in a way that comes forward in my life. It supports me in an abundant picture of that. Which is even more possible because there's no hidden places. There's no places you're hiding out from yourself. Nothing you don't want to tell yourself. So the light can just move through you, and so that when that occurs, you become transparent to this field of energy that's the loving, that's the hidden agenda. So we always suspect, oh, there's a conspiracy, and we're right. But since we're from a viewpoint of fear, we think it's a negative conspiracy, and there are such things. But when we're in the loving, the conspiracy is the loving. So all the reversals are brought back into perspective, and so we have that place we can work from.